This week on What Do You Got? Everyday Street Justice.
Stay tuned.
You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking day. Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bro Down Podcast. I'm Tim Fulton.
I'm Andy Smith.
And this is What Do You Got? A little segment where we come to the table with the topic that the other guy doesn't know about. It's Andy's turn. Andy, what do you got?
Everyday Street Justice.
Okay.
So I had a couple of run-ins with customer service people recently. And there seems to be... And I'm very conflicted on this. This is going to be like a sandbox type of conversation.
Fair.
Where it's going to be a lot of opinion, not a lot of fact, like most of our stuff. So there's a weird thing that I've noticed change since growing up.
Okay.
Whereas there's not a lot of consequences for, and as far as like a lay the average person's type of justice. I'm not talking like Punisher, like I'm going to go out and fucking kill everyone. Yeah. But just like consequences for being like an asshole or rude or whatever. And it's hard when you like are used to that or like but it seems like it's moving towards like there's just no consequences for being a shitty human.
Yeah.
Anymore.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know what are the proper consequences. I know what my version is, and I know that that's different than other people's version, but like if somebody say you go into a business or something like that, and this is where I get conflicted because if you go into a business and they basically like steal money from you in like a shady way, i.e. like they double charge your credit card or, you know, you have a subscription that you cancel and they don't cancel it and then they charge you, something along those lines. You're basically fucked. Like if your credit card company or like say it was linked to your bank or whatever the circumstance where like you can't go that route and there's no like paper trail to go through or whatever, you're basically just out money.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can do. And there's infinite amount of circumstances that can happen in. So you don't have any like...
There's no recourse.
There's no recourse for you. You basically just have to eat it. Yeah. And you can't even... Like I guess you could, but... Where I'm conflicted is like I don't want to live in a world where everyone can sue everyone for anything, which is where we kind of are.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that either. But I also don't like the fact that you just can't like call someone a fucking asshole when they're being a fucking asshole when it's warranted.
Yeah.
And then just like not have the cops called on you. You don't have all this fucking extra just like average person everyday street justice. It doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't. I was actually thinking about that the other day too. One of the things that gets me is bad driving. Yeah. And I'm not talking like someone is a bad driver. I'm talking about someone who thinks they're too good of a driver, so they just don't give a shit about anyone else. And this is an extreme example, but a couple weeks ago, it was a Monday morning. I go to work. I'm on the road at 6:45. Well, between 6:30 and 7. That's how I get to work. So 6:45, I'm on a highway. I won't tell you stalkers which one. And
23.
These guys go flying past me. Flying. And I drive a healthy speed. I was doing 70 in a 55. And that's basically like the flow of traffic there. And like, I have a little bit of a lead foot. They had to at least be going 100. They were drag racing. At 6:45 in the morning.
It's like basically rush hour in this where we live.
Yeah. And it was out in a part of Jersey that's fairly congested. And I'm just sitting there like, A, they could kill someone. B, if they don't, nothing's going to happen. I mean, there could be a cop conveniently placed by, but like no one's going to have any moral qualms about this. No one's going to be like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. They're going to be like, that was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And like for whatever reason, I mean, again, extreme example, but that bothered me. But you have people all the time who are just flying, who'll just weave in and out, and they just don't care because they're good at what they do. And yeah, they are until one day they're not.
Yeah, see, this is
shit like that bothers me.
This is how my brain process. And there's 1,000 reasons why this is stupid and that it will never work. But this is how I always look at something. If somebody tells me a story in the basement while we're having whiskey or just bullshitting, and I listen to the story and hear everything, and I go, yeah, fair enough, then I don't see a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like, oh, dude, like, that ain't cool, then it's like, all right, then there's a, you know, if I'm saying that, there's probably somebody's taking it a little too far.
Yeah.
So for something like that, I always look at it and I say the average reasonable person, but I don't know if they exist anymore. So if those kids were doing that at 2 a.m., they're not drunk, they're on a highway, I would say, like, if a cop pulled them over and they were street racing, it's like, listen, sir, we like to do this. We're not doing it during rush hour. We drove the highway once to make sure there wasn't anything in the road. Like, it's like, okay, I can kind of understand because, like, they're trying.
Yeah.
I
see 100%. I see 100% what you're saying.
I'm not saying that you should be able to do it, but I'm saying, like, as just a regular bystander, I'd be like, okay, I can see where that's, like, more acceptable.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to not, they're taking as little risk as possible.
Yeah.
To do it. Now, with the people that, like, they get on your ass, they're beeping the horn or going, like, after they were just sitting on their cell phone back in traffic and they're just, like, trying to swerve you off the road and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, when you pull them out of the car in our make-believe world and you're like, why did you do that? And they're like, because I wanted to go. And they're like, yeah, but you got out of bed late. You went to bed late. You got up. That's not their fault.
Yeah.
And you're now doing this in traffic, endangering everyone else's life on the road because you're late to work. And a lot of times it doesn't get you there any faster because you see that same person the whole way to work.
Yeah.
Just trying to do the same shit. Like, if I was a make-believe cop in a perfect world and, like, I pulled up and, like, somebody had a broken nose and they're sitting on the side of the road pouting, I'm like, what happened here? They're like, well, I was going to work in the middle lane. This person didn't like that I was going 5 above the speed limit and decided to tailgate me. So when I let off the brakes, she hit my bumper or he hit my bumper. Got out, they came up to me, started mouthing off, and I broke their nose. I'd be like, fair enough. Nobody gets a ticket. No one's going to jail. It's done, right? Right? It's done. You did something that you shouldn't have done. You got what you should have got. But that doesn't exist anymore.
No, the world doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
And, like, it's to the point where it's either like you either get out of the car and you're going to get sued or you get out of the car and you're going to get shot.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
There's no middle. There's no one just can, like, quote unquote, like, handle it like a man shit and just, like, take your licks and go home. If it's like everyone wants to be like the loudmouth, scream at you, be the tough guy, and then if they lose the fight, they want to sue you. In that context. But with, like, the customer service and all this shit, it's like everyone just gets to be a shitty human being and there's no recourse. But it's ingrained now to the point where, like, people that work for businesses can do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be someone who, like, says, like, you should be able to, like, I don't want to call HR.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Like, but it's basically like, yeah, I can take your money. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to spend 10 hours of your day fucking with your credit card company? For $500 you might. Not for 20. So fuck you.
Too bad.
I don't like it. So what are we going to do, Tim?
There's nothing we can do.
Revolution?
Revolution what?
Anarchy? No.
No, there's nothing. This is one of those situations where you just kind of have to eat it up. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest realities. You can, and this is impossible, so fuck you, I'm going to say it anyway, but you can try to change your mindset in that it's not everyone, right?
No.
We focus on the bitchiest attitudes because those are the, I don't want to say the exception, but those are the ones that stand out. So if you cancel 20 memberships and 5 of those memberships fuck you over because they didn't actually cancel or whatnot, you're not going to go back and thank the 15 for doing the good thing or the correct thing because it is like the standard. But you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, fuck these 5 companies. Screw those people who did this to me. I'm going to go murder their children.
Yeah.
except not really. But you see my point.
That's a common thing with people though. Like most people, like with betting, sports, they usually remember the bad things that happened way more vividly and clearly than they do the good things.
I think it's like some sort of like natural thing that people have. It's just a thing we do.
Yeah, there's a quote from one of my favorite movies, Rounders, where he loses all his money, and he quotes a famous poker player, and he's like, very few people can recall the big pots that they've won, but every single person will remember with great clarity the times that they lost all their money.
Yeah.
It's like, that's, I don't know, maybe it's like you're remembering that the stove's hot, kind of a like evolutionary thing. Like, remember this shitty thing so that you avoid it next time.
Well, guess what? We go right back to anyway.
And so I don't know what things would you, coming from somebody who's like very non-confrontational and all that, what kind of things would you like to see be allowed and not taken like street justice type? I'm not talking about like necessarily everything has to turn into like a physical confrontation, but just like things where socially everyone just like accepted like this can happen, and that's what you don't get to call the cops. You don't get to sue. You don't get to complain about it to an authority afterwards. You just, that's what you get.
See, I don't know. See, this is a difficult question to answer because everything is subjective, right? So we're looking at this as two, what we like to think is normal people, looking at a situation that we would say this should happen this way. And when it doesn't, we're like, that's wrong. And I'm going to go ahead and say, because we're relatively normal human beings, a solid 95% of the time, we're probably in the right. Maybe I'm patting myself on the back there. But then you get people who are like, no, I'm trying to imagine the other extreme, right? So like that situation, you lose out $20, $50 on a subscription to something. And you're there, you're arguing with the person in person. And I don't think it should go to fisticuffs, but
no.
You say, all right, you charge me an extra $50. You knock off their computer, falls on the floor, it breaks. And you're like, there you go. That's your punishment. Part of me wants to say that should be a thing. But then there's going to be someone else who comes in there and be like, I want something. This is what I want. When they're like, we can't do that, she's going to be like, I immediately went to she. Sorry, she's immediately going to push the computer off the desk and be like, well, that's the punishment. And then
but I'm saying,
out.
What is your opinion? Not listening to anybody else in Tim Fulton's world. Like somebody tailgating you and all this shit. Like riding your ass on the highway during rush hour, driving erratically for no reason whatsoever. They're not in an emergency, anything like that. Do you think if you had like a cup full of pennies, you could just like throw it behind your car? Is that acceptable? Just to let them know, like you're driving, this is not acceptable.
I remember an episode of that old car show. What was it? With Ice-T.
Pimp My Ride?
Pimp My Ride.
Exhibit.
Exhibit. Ice-T. And they pimped out someone's van.
Old.
It was an old school bus, so it had one of those stop signs, but they changed it to just say chill.
Chill.
Fair enough, right? What I don't know.
It's difficult because it's so situational. But would you say that the reins have to be loosened up as far as what is it socially acceptable to accept behavior and not accept behavior from people?
Acceptable behavior for that instance would be in a magical universe, however many lanes it is, for that many cars to get side by side and just do 30 until the end of the trip.
That's true, but you fuck everyone else over on the highway.
Yeah, but we're going with imaginary universe, all right, buddy?
You know what would happen if you did that? If a big neon sign came out and identified who is responsible for the holdup, the other people would slay him in the middle of the highway.
They would.
They would.
Maybe we could like team up, so like we trap his car on like the left-hand side, and we just let everyone else go on the right.
It really, really, like a lot of times, the first thing that you think of, at least I think of, is like someone should smack them. right? So like all those videos of the Karens yelling at like poor girls that are just trying to make $8.50 an hour on a register. Your first thing is like, just smack her.
So I normally don't go to violence. I don't like that for multiple reasons because I think it gets out of hand really fast.
Well, no, we're talking controlled environment. Like you just have to do the smack,
just the smack,
and not like a pimp hand, like how you'd smack a kid back in the 50s who was misbehaving, like a stop.
Still, I don't know if I like that, but. Going contrary to what I just said, there was this one video of this lady who got pulled over by a cop, and she basically point blank was like, no. And she left, and he followed her, and she pulled over, and she got out of the car, and he's like, you're under arrest. You just left the scene, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, you're not arresting me. And she...
Oh, I saw it was in a dirt parking lot.
Yeah, and she went after him, and he tased her.
She was older, too.
She was older. She was a little bit on the heftier side, and so, like, that felt good. That felt good. I normally don't like that sort of stuff, but that felt good.
See, that's what I think. That's what I think is going on. Is that most people don't like violence, and it's very understandable why. Because it can get out of hand, and it's very unpredictable of what can happen. But when you see something happen where it's quote unquote violent, but it doesn't go out of hand, and like what happens seems to be justified, you're like. Okay, good.
See, but that's the problem is that what people deem as justified is so varied. I know we were talking about like controlled environments.
I agree.
Even between us, you've shown me videos where you're like, look at this street justice, and I was sitting there like, that's fucked up. Yeah. The guy should be in jail. Yeah. Yeah. So like,
we don't know what happened.
So, but like that's why it's subject. Like that's why I get weird with when you get there.
I agree. I will extend the olive branch there and say that whenever you introduce physical altercation, you have no control of how far or not far it goes.
Yeah, and so we're in a weird non-agreement that because I agree with you, when you see something that you feel is justified, there is a little bit in you that's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you could just smack someone and that was it in the back of the head and that was it. Yeah. Yeah. Probably would utilize that from time to time. But that would never. No. It's
impossible. Yeah. There's a perfect example of how like when it doesn't go bad, it's perfect. But like how quickly it could have gone bad. There was a video of this guy. He parked a car at a gas station. It looked like a nice car. And he must have walked inside to buy something. And he looked like a kid, but not a kid, like probably like a late teenager, like walks up to the car and like gets in it and tries to steal it. And the dude just comes out with a gun and points it at the car. And he's like, motherfucker, like you couldn't hear any audio, but I'm assuming it's like, motherfucker, get the fuck out of my car. Yeah. But the kid gets out and he just like hands in his pockets like, yeah, my bad. And the dude's like, get the fuck away from my car. And the kid like walked away from the car. It's like when you see that, because no one got hurt, you're like, good. Yeah. Good. Like, you shouldn't steal a fucking car. And as the person whose car that is, you don't know if there are kids in the car. Yeah. You don't know if they're going to pick up their grandma who needs to go. You don't know what the fuck's going on. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, good. Good on that guy. But then if he just unloaded an entire magazine into the kid, you're like, maybe ask some questions first.
Your upholstery.
Yeah. Like you just, No,
like, I fully agree with you there. Like,
but it could have gone way bad. Yeah. Because if that kid had a gun, maybe he pulls the gun or whatever. But when you see it work out, you're like, good. Yeah. That should happen because maybe that kid will think twice next time he tries to steal a car. But again, that can go so bad. That's like the extreme level of like things that can go bad is when you involve like weapons on top of it. But so we didn't get anywhere.
We didn't get anywhere.
We got nowhere.
We immediately were like, let's go into imaginary land.
Yeah.
There was one my grandma was on a jury once. This guy's pumpkins were being stolen. He was a farmer. So it's literally his livelihood. So we went out, he figured out when they were doing it, blah, 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 and he went out with a shotgun, and he scared the shit out of them, and he got arrested for brandishing a weapon in front of people. And so she was on the jury for them. And the jury unanimously was just like, no. Which is a fun fact, by the way. Juries have the ultimate power.
Yes.
Technically speaking, this is actually, you cannot suggest this as legal advice, and we are not lawyers, so we are not suggesting this as legal advice. But because of a weird conclusion of law, even if something is illegal and you did it, if the jury says you are innocent, you cannot be retried and the jury cannot be punished. So if you murdered someone in cold blood and for whatever reason they just think you're a stand-up guy and they say you're innocent, they can't be punished for it and you can't be retried.
Well, they would find you innocent of the charge of murder or manslaughter, which would be defined as an unlawful killing of another human being.
I'm using that as an example, dude.
Yeah.
Don't nitpick.
No, I agree. Well, you know what? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe what the answer is that if somebody does get arrested for something like that, the judge should have the power, because there's not a jury on every. Sometimes things just go to court for, it's like it's decided in there before it goes to trial.
Yeah.
You could plead down or whatever. If someone was like, "What happened?"
Jury notification, that's what it's called. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah. If the judge was like, "What happened?" And it's like, "Oh, I was on the highway, this, that, and the other thing. Person almost ran me off the road. So I pulled over to get away from him, and they pulled up behind me and got in my face outside my car. So I hit him." And they're like, "What's your side?" Like, "That's what happened." And they're like, "All right, nothing to see here." No, like, I think that the judge should be able to. I mean, he might be able to. I don't know, because I don't fucking know shit. But there should be like a more conscious, like, yeah, like you did something that you weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
What he did illegal on paper more than what you did? Yeah. But you got what you deserved, so no charges. Fuck out of my courtroom. Gavel.
Yeah. Unfortunately, things don't work like that.
We need to just get friends with some judges. Okay? Has more benefits than you can think.
All right. So I think that's where we're going to end
That's where
off.
we're going to end it. I think we made more problems than we solved.
We did. So let us know in the comment section down below if you are a judge. And if you are, you can be our friend.
I will guarantee you no judge has ever seen this or will ever see
Or
this.
will ever see this. Let us know in the comment section down below what you think about street justice. How far is too far? What would you like to see different in the world if things could be different?
Duels. Duels.
Duel.
Bring back
They
duels.
do need to bring duels back. If both people agree to it and sign things, it should 100% be allowed.
Real quick before we go, how many duels would have to happen before they re-outlawed them? How many question
2.
1, and then question 2, how many dudes would die by getting talked into, by getting like shamed, by risk of losing their man card, by backing out of a duel? Like, how many dudes are like, "All right, never shot a blunderbuss before."
I die just because I'd be too scared to say no.
The male population in this state would plummet by percentiles a week until it either hit an equilibrium or they outlawed it. Yeah. That would be, bring back duels.
I'm standing strong. They should. Let us know. What am I doing? Did you know that you can suggest your own "What Do You Got" topic? You can do so by going to brodownpro.com. We have a little portal at the top of the thing. There's a link. We'll let you know when that topic's going to be aired, if it's going to air. If it's stupid, we're not going to use it. So fuck you. We'll catch you guys next time.
Later.
You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking